Hello and welcome to White Glove Reviews. In this video, we're going to take a look at my Scion of the Dragon EDH deck. And what I'd like to do as I go through it and as I deal it out, I'd like to discuss a little bit about the deck itself, how it plays, some of the card choices, that kind of thing. And what makes this particular deck a little unusual is it's a 5-color deck that uses no fetch land, well, none of the traditional fetch lands, none of the Ravnica dual lands, or none of the traditional dual lands. And the mana base itself, which tends to be the most expensive part of any Eternal deck, is really inexpensive. Like you can create the mana base for this deck as non-foils for like $3 or $4 for all the lands, and most of them are basic lands, and you can just get those free from your local card shop or just raid a box you have laying around. Now, the first card I want to look at is the general itself, and the Scion of the Dragon. This particular card, it's a huge influence on how the deck itself runs. Now, what this does is the Scion of the Dragon is 1 mana of each color. It costs 5 mana to cast it. It has flying, and it's a 4/4 by default. You pay 2 mana and you search your library for a dragon card and put that card into your graveyard. If you do this, Scion of the Dragon becomes a copy of that card until end of turn, and then you shuffle your library. Now, the thing that you need to be aware of with this particular ability is you can stack up as many copies of this ability as you want for 2 mana each, but once you resolve the first one, it's no longer Scion of the Dragon and loses this ability. So if you want to search for multiple dragons in a turn, you need to search for them all at once. So basically you stack up like 3 uses of it if you want to go get 3 dragons, and whatever the last dragon you put into the graveyard will be whatever he stays for the rest of the turn. And he's temporarily the other dragons if you want to do some other kinds of tricks. So like you could say, stack 3 uses of the ability up, then go get as your first dragon, go get a new dragon that has an activated ability, use that activated ability, then resolve your next 2 and have them become something different. So Scion of the Dragon is the general. Now as we go through it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort out the lands, and we'll talk about I'll sort out the lands and mana sources as we go through it, and then we'll talk about them at the very end. Now, a lot of the dragons themselves are included for their utility ability, and Steel Hellkite is one of those. Sometimes it's just a really good idea to be able to say, swing with the Steel Hellkite, or go get a Steel Hellkite with your Scion of the Dragon and pay 0 to destroy all of someone's tokens, that kind of thing. So you have him as an option. Now, card draw is critically important in really any deck. Now, when I was building this deck, I had a couple rules that I was trying to use as I was building it. One of them was I wanted to minimize the double mana costs of cards. Like anything that took 2 black or 2 red or 2 green, I tried to avoid if at all possible. Now, I knew that I would need a lot of double red because the majority of the good dragons that are red are double red. So what I did was I understood that I was going to have to basically have some double red cards, maybe 1 double black card, maybe 1 or 2 double green cards where it was just unavoidable. But every other thing that I was put in the deck, I tried to make sure it only had 1 mana only required 1 of a specific color of mana. One of the main things I wanted to do is my goal was to be able to cast my general on turn 5 as consistently as possible, and sometimes turn 4 if things go well. But I always wanted to have 1 of each mana by turn 5, and so this is another reason. Like I didn't want to have to say put 2 black into play before my 5th turn to cast some kind of card draw, that kind of thing. So ambitions cost and its effective copies of it, like Ancient Carving. Anyway, like this card and that one, these are pretty good card draw. You get 3 cards for 3 life, and it only costs you 4 mana, only one of which is black. Now, land tax, this deck does not have a lot of white in it. White is by far the least prevalent color. And land tax, again, because I'm planning on casting my general on turn 5, if I have to, I can suck it up and put a plains into play turn 1 to get a land tax into play. The other thing about land tax that is important is if you have a land tax out, you should land tax every turn you can land tax. Because even if you're throwing lands in the graveyard, it doesn't really matter. Just thin out your deck, make sure you have all the mana you need, and then just start pitching the extra lands to discard if you have to. Alright, basic land, basic land. Okay, Crux of Fate. Well, you know how I said I was trying to avoid double of any color? Crux of Fate requires double black. Now, the reason I included this card is I'm reasonably sure in the environment that I play, I'm not going to need to cast Crux of Fate before turn 5. I do not play in a competitive EDH meta. It's not exactly casual, but it's not competitive either. It's probably what you consider a mid-range meta. And so I would be okay if I had to wait to turn 6 to cast this. So, you know, on my 6th turn, my land could be the second swamp if I didn't have something that produced multiple colors. Now, Burnished Heart, again, my goal is to be able to play my general on turn 5. So if I have to, I play this guy turn 3, I use him turn 4, and then I should have my mana for my general. I did not want to play, well, I can talk about this when we get to mana sources, but the reason I'm playing the Sylvan Caryatid instead of like a mana bird or something like that is the hexproof is very, very relevant, as is the 3 toughness, and every now and then it's good to be able to block that pesky 2/2. It just saves you a couple points of damage here and there. And again, it sort of helps finish out our mana, and I'll add this to the mana stack so we can talk about it at the very end. Same with the Signet, Swamp. Okay. Scourge of the Throne is one of the dragons which this deck runs off of. And this one is good to sort of every now and then you can finagle your way into an extra attack phase. That's really why it's here. And there are times when you get 3 or 4 dragons out where that extra attack phase can take out 1 or more people. Land. Okay. Utvara Hellkite is just an amazing dragon. There is really no way to sugarcoat it. Absolute, positively worst case scenario, you go get this with your general, you attack. At the end of that turn, you have 2 dragons. Generally, it works out way better than that. Being able to make multiple dragons is pretty good. Also, there are times when I have dragons that also give haste to things. So there are times when you can say Utvara Hellkite, Scourge of the Throne, you have these 2 guys, the attack with them, and then because you have haste, the new dragons that come into play get to attack on the second attack step. So again, not bad. Cyclonic Rift. This is kind of the equivalent of like a fog, or basically the, you know, reset button that will hopefully save you. It'll save you from someone just obliterating you. It might break up a combo, that kind of thing. And this fits our criteria of only 1 color of a mana. The normal casting cost is 1 blue, 1 colorless, and the overload is 1 blue, 6 colorless. So either way, you can cast it with only a single island out. And it is not bad at all. The Hellkite Overlord, you can go get him if you need to regenerate. He's a big dumb dragon. This guy has been kind of on my cut list for a while, and I haven't cut him yet, but he is in the running to be cut. I just haven't found a replacement for him that I like yet. And maybe once every very, very infrequently, being able to go get him with your Scion and regenerate your Scion might be relevant, I guess. I'm not real happy with him, but anyway, he's a big dragon. And he's one of the ones, double red, but it takes a green and a black, so it's, for the most part, we're trying to stick to double red as much as possible. No worse than double red, and singles of every other color. Now, the Hellkite Tyrant, I wish this guy did not say at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. I don't like those kind of effects. I don't like the one where if you have so much life, you win the game. It's just a personal pet peeve of mine. His ability, however, of being able to steal all the artifacts is pretty ridiculous. I'm not playing the Nicol Bolas, like the legendary Nicol Bolas that wipes out somebody's hand. I'm not that guy in EDH. I don't want to hamstring one random person. But I don't have any qualms about, say, stealing a couple artifacts from that person who just went crazy at the beginning. And, you know, they have a Saw Ring and something else that just needs to work for me instead of them. So, again, I don't like the alternate win ability, but he's pretty good otherwise. The Balefire Dragon. This is a nifty thing to just kind of head off someone going crazy. You can deal 6 damage to all their creatures if it gets through. And it's a pretty good dragon to have. It's a nice utility option. Now, Necromancy, along with a number of other cards, is part of a reanimation package in this deck. And Necromancy, in addition to being able to play this as an enchantment, or technically it's an aura now. It might be an enchantment. You got to check the spoiler to tell for sure right now, but I think it's like an enchantment that becomes an aura or something like that. Anyway, you can play this as an instant if you need to, and then the creature goes away at the end of the turn, or you can play it during your main phase, and it'll stick around. And it's a cheap way to reanimate something. And since we are putting dragons in the graveyard with Scion of the Ur Dragon, paying 3 mana to get a big dragon back that's amazing doesn't hurt. Now, Deathrite Shaman is part of our mana fixing package, just in general, because we have a couple of lands that we're throwing in the graveyard, and other people throw lands in the graveyard anyway. So it can be mana fixing, and also being able to exile an instant sorcery or exile a creature. It's a nice thing to have to occasionally break up some other people's graveyard combos. So that goes in the mana stack. Savage Ventmaw. This guy, originally, I really liked him a lot. It was really nice on my first swing with the Scion to be able to get 6 mana after combat and then, you know, cast a dragon. As it stands, he is on my potential cut list because the Ur Dragon from the recent Commander box is so much better for your first attack. And it really does not matter what you get with him. It's beneficial. So he's a maybe on the cut list, but I kind of like having the extra option. Now, Dragon Lord Dramoka. This guy's good if you just want people to be able to not mess with whatever you're doing on your turn. A lot of times, if you have something established, like a Force of Dragons, and you're gonna basically swing out and kill somebody, or more than one person, you can go grab him with your general, and your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So it keeps them from any fogs or any board wipes that are, you know, casting in board wipes or anything like that. And also sometimes he's good just if you want to cast something and not have it countered. You can go grab him and then cast whatever you want because, again, they can't cast spells. More land. Now, because we have dragons and because we want to throw stuff in the graveyard anyway, and because paying 1 red for a dragon is pretty good even if you don't get to use it for turn, Sneak Attack is in here because it's just a great card and it synergizes well with the rest of the deck. Kadama's Reach works with fetching our mana. A lot of times one of the first lands you need is a green mana. One of the first mana that you need is green. And that way you can power your Kadama's Reach, you can power your Cultivate, that kind of stuff. Evolving Wilds. Since we are running a lot of basics, it's nice to be able to grab any basic we want for no cost except it coming in play tapped. I also, with this deck, I wanted to avoid lands coming into play tapped as much as possible. So I'm not playing like any trial lands or anything like that. So, again, I'm limiting the number of things that come into play tapped as much as possible. And so Evolving Wilds, you get the land from Evolving Wilds tapped, but it's not super terrible. And this does provide a bit of mana fixing. Sensei's Top, again, it's just a utility card. Okay. Crystalline Crawler is a card from one of the recent Commander boxes, and this card is really good. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was until I started playing it. Here's the thing. Since we are playing a 5-color deck, and we are on track to have one of each mana on turn 5. Conceivably, on turn 4, you can play this guy, have 4 counters on him, then immediately remove the 4 counters to cast something else. Or you can use him for a little mana fixing and that kind of thing. And he kind of, if you have other stuff to do that turn, and you can play him for 4, like play from him for 4 different colors of mana, he kind of casts for free. And he's a little random mana fixing anyway. Ancient Craving, again, more card draw for 1 of a color and then 3. Transguild Promenade. Yeah. This card and its evil twin. They produce any color mana. I only have like a few cards that come into play, a few lands that come into play tapped. So this generally isn't catastrophic when you play it. I've debated over and over and over again replacing this with a City of Brass or a Mana Convergence, but I just didn't want to take damage from my lands in this deck. So I'm playing Transguild Promenade, and I'm also playing Rupture Spire. So these are some mana fixing. The paying the colorless, it's inconvenient, but if you draw it early in your hand and you have one of those like turn 2 where nothing really exciting is going to happen, like you have one of those hands where nothing's going on turn 2, you can play this, pay the 1 colorless, and you know, go on with your life. I have had this inconvenience me in a couple of games, so alright, I'm playing a couple of the panoramas from Alara, and what these do is these fetch 1 of 3 lands. Like this one will go and get a basic mountain, forest, or plains, and I'm running these to just kind of round out the mana in case I need to. Unburial Rites. This is part of the reanimation package. It goes and grabs a creature from the graveyard, and you can get 2 because when you flash it back, so that's pretty good. Alright, Dragon Lord Culligan. He is incredible. His last ability, where whenever an opponent casts a creature or a planeswalker with the same name, it's meaningless in EDH. But the important line is other creatures you control have haste. This guy is great to go get with Scion of the Ur Dragon. He either lets you swing with the Scion the turn you play him, if you go get him and turn the Scion into it, or he's good to get back and then say swing in with a bunch of stuff. More land. Oracle. Oracle is pretty self-explanatory. You get to play land off the top of your deck. Now the thing with this is it's just more ways to put mana into play, that kind of thing. The Horde Smelter Dragon. I like the thought of having a dragon that can destroy an artifact if I need to, and every now and then you can go crazy with him and you can turn your general into a Horde Smelter and maybe pay 8, 12, 16 mana, whatever, to destroy 4 artifacts, and then your Scion smashes someone for enough damage to kill them. Sol Ring. I am not one of those people who says play a Sol Ring in every deck. I think that the Sol Ring, there are decks that Sol Ring works really good in. There's decks where it's just kind of meh. And I want to try and maximize the usefulness of my Sol Ring. It happens to work really well in this deck because I'm running some Signets and some other artifact mana that it's nice to be able to, say, play pretty quickly. And also, the Sol Ring just nicely pays his ability. The Dragon Lord of Tarka, he's a big dragon. I like the ability to deal some damage if I need to creatures and planeswalkers. It's just kind of a utility. He's on kind of a utility card. Solemn. The Solemn is pretty much the universal mana fixing in EDH. Since we were running a bunch of basic lands, and if worst case scenario we're running reanimation targets, we can bring him back. So we have options there, and he's just good to have. Ramos is ridiculous. He is insane in this deck. And there are so many ways you can use him nicely. One, you can just play him and then play one of your many multicolor spells, and he'll get big relatively quickly. Other things you can do is, say, on the turn you're swinging with your Scion, you go get Ramos, you cast a couple spells, You put counters on your general, and then you can do stuff there. Bladewing the Risen is again part of our reanimation package. Oftentimes you can go get, say, Bladewing and another dragon, and then you can bring them back with the bring him back with the reanimation target with the reanimation spell, and then bring back another dragon with his ability. More mana. Sarkhan the Mad is the, I guess, original dragon planeswalker. His ultimate ability: each dragon creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target player. This can just outright kill somebody. He's also card advantage if you pay his 0, although I kind of just like the thought of killing someone with him. That's just me. Now, the Runeborn Hellkite, it allows you to take advantage of the most expensive Wheel of Fortune ever at 8 mana. Because you go and fetch him with Scion, throw him in the graveyard, and then you pay the 6 and exile him from your graveyard, and you can Wheel of Fortune as an instant. Not ideal, but again, it's an option. Teneb the Harvester, he's just a reanimation trick, and he's a dragon. Acharka World Render. The main thing about him is whenever a dragon you control attacks, he gains double strike until end of turn. You can go grab him if you have a few dragons and just outright destroy someone. Dax Duplicate. Dax Duplicate? Anyway, this particular clone, you can have it copy a creature on the battlefield, only it has haste. Dethrone is also nice, but the main thing is you have a hasty clone. You can do a lot of nifty things with this, and in worst case scenario, you copy your Utravara Hellkite, and they both swing, and you get lots and lots of dragons. So again, it's not really a bad choice. Another Panorama, again for mana fleshing out. The Disciple of Bolas. This is some card draw and life gain. And what you can do is, again, if you have a big dragon that has outlived its usefulness, you use the Disciple and you sack it and get life and cards. Reanimate is the 1 mana part of the reanimation package. And it's pretty nice to be able to reanimate a couple of things in a turn, and reanimate makes that possible. Russian Knowledge, it follows our rule of only a single mana symbol in its casting cost, or a single color mana symbol in its casting cost, no double colors. And with this one, since we're going to have big dumb dragons with high casting costs, for 5 mana to draw 8 cards, it's a pretty decent deal. Stunt Double is a clone with flash, and again, sometimes it's nice to be able to just have a clone of something. Worst case scenario, you copy one of your dragons. Painful Truths is my new favorite card draw for EDH since it came out, and this is 3 mana if you're playing 3 colors and have 1 of each mana for 3 cards, and you pay 3 life. So again, I like it. It matches our rule of no more than 1 of a color when you cast it. So in this case, you cast it for black, white, and blue or whatever, and you'll draw 3 cards. The Minion Plasm is once again part of the reanimation package. Generally, this will be a big dragon or something nifty that someone else has played. And so anyway, again, more reanimation. Now, the Dragon is ridiculous. I don't like the Dragon as a general, but as a dragon in the deck, hanging out with the Scion, it is amazing. Now, the thing that is relevant about him, except in addition to the fact that he's a giant 10/10, is whenever 1 or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards, then you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So what happens is, the first time you swing with the Scion, you go get the Dragon. Well, before you swing, you go get the Dragon. You swing with the Dragon, you draw at least a card, and then you put the best card from your hand into play for free. So, again, he's a pretty good deal. Felwar Stone is part of our mana fixing. Usually, well, almost always, someone has a color of mana that we can use. Grab the Reins. It's a neat combat trick to have, especially if people are playing giant, ridiculous creatures. and sometimes it can just save you. Worst case scenario, you throw some big stupid dragon you've made at somebody and it kills them. Mana, again, explosive vegetation. This is just more mana search. Same with Cultivate and Kadam's Reach. Urban Evolution was initially not my favorite card, but after playing it for a while, I really like this card. Pay 5 mana, draw 3 cards, and play an additional land. This kind of conflicts with wanting to play our general on the 5th turn, but every now and then you might be able to play it on the 4th turn, or you play it like the 6th turn, that kind of thing. It's not... It kind of... The 5 casting cost kind of makes it clash a little bit, but I like having it in the deck, so you may play it a little later, like turn 6 or turn 7 or something like that. And so it just provides a teeny bit of excel and more cards. Again, more card draw, and we're avoiding double of any specific color mana. So a blue and a green, not too terrible. More of this. Another clone. Again, just good to have. Sometimes it's really nice to be able to play this for 3 mana and not have any mana requirement, any color requirement. Scourge of Kerr Ridges. Again, this is just a good utility dragon. You can Pyroclasm everything on the ground, or Tornado everything on the air. Tornado Elemental? I don't know. Hit a bunch of stuff in the air. I don't think I've ever actually used the thing that hits the stuff in the air in this deck because all my dragons fly. Heat Shimmer. Again, just double up a dragon. Having 2 or 3 or 4 Utavara Hellkites is kind of a nice thing to have happen because you get a lot of dragon tokens. Rupture Spire, we talked about that when we talked about its evil twin or good twin. Land, land, land. Alright. The most painful to cast card in this deck is Scourge of Valkas, and it's 3 red and 2 colorless. This is in here because when it comes into play, it deals damage. When it or another dragon comes into play, it deals damage equal to the number of dragons you have. And there are times when you can put in a dragon, and then another dragon, and then another dragon, and you can actually do a reasonable amount of damage. I have not gotten to live the dream and ultimate the other Sarkhan yet, and basically kill one person with putting a bunch of dragons into play, but that is always a possibility. So let's see. Dragon Lord Silumgar, yeah, he's kind of one of those things I've been wanting to cut for a while, but every now and then it's good to just steal a creature or planeswalker. Animate Dead is part of the Animate Dead package, or the reanimation package, as is Body Double. We have Terramorphic Expanse to go with Evolving Wilds. Kindred Summons. This is a new card that I've been trying out. I want it to be good, but I kind of feel like it's going to be a cut. I don't know, it just doesn't seem to be getting there. I've tried to set up situations where I can cast it, and most times I just would rather smash someone with more dragons. So, again, I'm not sure about that one. Wayfarer's Bauble. It's a cheap way to go get a basic land, and it's artifact based, so it does a lot to randomly fix some mana that's gone awry. Mountain, Cultivate. Alright. Silver Glade Pathfinder. It's a 1/1 for a green and a colorless, and this card is really good in this deck. What it does is you pay a green and a colorless, discard a card from your hand, search your library for a basic land, and put that card into play tapped. This does everything we want it to do. It fixes our mana, and it puts dragons in the graveyard, which we can get back many different ways. So it's just a good all-around card that works really well with this deck. Sarkhan Unbroken. He's the other dragon planeswalker. Well, the other one that is dragony for this deck. His +1, you draw a card and get a color of mana of any color. A little bit of mana fixing, but if you've cast him, your mana is most likely already okay. He makes dragon tokens, which we don't really care about. And maybe, someday, you'll be able to search your library for any number of dragon cards and put them onto the battlefield. If you can resolve his ability and you haven't been decked or something weird hasn't happened, you're probably going to be able to kill someone. Just automatically, and then swing out and kill everyone else again, probably. Siphon Mind, more card draw. Again, I'm just trying to limit it to 1 mana, so 1 black, 3 colorless, and you have some card draw. Gilded Lotus is just, again, a little artifact mana. A Swamp, and Ash Barrens. And Ash Barrens is another card that is really, really good in this deck. Now, the thing about Ash Barrens is the basic land cycling. If you get this in your opening hand, and you have another mana of any color, it does a lot to fix your problems. And worst case, if you're ahead on things, you can just play it and deal with the colorless mana. I have rarely not cycled this. Alright. Ta-da! Through the power of video magic, what I've done is I've reorganized the deck I just went through, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I go about building a deck and how I think about it. And what I generally do is I break up the cards in my deck into sections, into functional sections. And the functional sections, depending upon the deck, will change. Like, if I have a deck, like for example, in this particular deck, the Scion of the Dragon, I have a section of dragons. And that's these cards right here. And for the dragon section, what I did is literally it's just the dragons. And these are what I consider the beef of the deck. So I try to group things by functionality. And in this case, like, dragons are one category of cards in the deck. Now, another category of cards, and this one pops up a lot, is card draw. And I'm pretty broad when it comes to the concept of card draw. Some of them are pretty obvious, because it could be like card draw and card selection, card quality, that kind of thing. Like Disciple of Bolas counts as card draw. If you were building a deck where life gain was also important, depending upon which was more important, it might end up in that stack or the card draw stack. But in this case, I don't have a life gain stack, so it's card draw. And Rush of Knowledge, Painful Truth, Siphon Mind. Again, if you're using like a discard mechanic that's more important than card draw, this might end up in that stack. But generally, I try and organize them by the function that they're in the deck to basically give you, like the ability they're in the deck to give you. Ancient Craving. Now, Sensei's Divining Top, it's not exactly card draw. It's more card quality or card selection, but it sort of fits in under that envelope. Now, the Runehorn Hellkite, technically it is a dragon, but it's really card draw. It's in here for card draw. So there's that, and then there's Ambition's Cost. Now, as I mentioned before, I have a reanimation package, and that's this. And again, I just group all the reanimation targets together, or the reanimation spells together. And, you know, Necromancy, Body Double, they all kind of serve the same function. Now, the last two categories for this particular deck would be Mana Fixing over here. Well, also, there's the lands, and this is just the basic lands in the deck that we talked about. And these are mostly basic lands. There's like, I don't know, 30 basic lands, something like that, plus a couple of non-basics. But the last two categories are Mana Fixing. And for Mana Fixing, I also include things like Mana Rocks, Soul Ring, that kind of thing. And I often have just a Tricks or Miscellaneous stack. And that's stuff that doesn't fall into any particular category, or if the deck has something specific it does, then there'll be like a Tricks and that specific thing. Like this has dragons. Like a lot of times with a lot of decks, I'll just have a creature stack, and then I'll have Mana Fixing, and then I'll have, you know, I might have an equipment package and that kind of thing. And I try and break them up into functional groups. And in this case, this is just a trick stack. Like Cyclonic Rift is by far a trick. Now, I could have had a subcategory of, say, clones. I only have 3 clones in the deck, so it's not really what I would consider a category. This is more just kind of a nifty trick thing. So that's why they ended up in the trick stack. Same with Grab the Reins and Heat Shimmer. Kindred Summons, it just doesn't fit anywhere really else. The 2 Planeswalkers. There's an argument that these could go in the Dragon stack, but I tended to not think of them that way. These are specifically to do their Planeswalker thing, and they don't really have anything to do with the Scion Dragons. And again, 2 more. Sneak Attack is just a good utility trick card, and Crux of Fate is just, again, a board wipe that's pretty helpful for us. Now, you might notice from the stacks, if you can tell in the video, the biggest stack is actually Mana Fixing and Mana Rocks. And this is particularly important for this deck because, again, we have basics. We're running mostly basic lands, and we're not running any of the Ravnica the Ravnica Shock lands, the traditional dual lands, or any of the other lands of that type. So what I did for Mana Fixing is I wanted a good mix of things that would kind of round out any sharp, pointy issues we had related to mana. And let me show you real quick how I did this. So I included a couple of signets, and one thing that I want to note, I specifically included these 2 signets. And the reason I included these 2 signets is they both produce green, and green is one of those colors I wanted to make sure I had. And they also give black and red, which are the 2 other colors that are most critical for the deck. Now, Deathrite Shaman and the Sylvan Caryatid, they both produce any color mana, so again, they're just kind of to round out some of the rough edges. The Crystalline Crawler will get you any color mana. Sol Ring is just a little Excel. Kadama's Reach, Explosive Vegetation, and Cultivate are just staple green mana fixing, and again, since we are dealing with basic lands, these work exceptionally well. The Oracle speeds things along. We have a decent amount of search, so you shuffle at least once a turn with the Scion of the Dragon, so you double your chance of hitting a land on top, and we have other land search to boot. So again, the Solemn is just utility. And Fellwar Stone, I included it because I wanted some stuff to do on turn 1 and turn 2, if at all possible. I didn't want to waste those turns, and I wanted to improve my mana situation while I was doing it. And Fellwar Stone, unless you're playing 3 people that are playing colorless decks, you're going to get some mana of some useful color from somebody. Wayfarer's Bauble is, in my opinion, it's one of those things you can put it in any EDH deck, and it's not necessarily going to hurt you because it's 3 mana, play an additional land, play an additional basic land. I talked about the Silverglade Pathfinder before. She is phenomenal for this deck. Urban Evolution, it could be card draw or it could be in the mana stack. I put it in the mana stack because of the extra land thing and the drawing into more lands. It could probably go in this stack, but I'm lukewarm. I like Urban Evolution, but it kind of feels like it clashes a little bit with what we're doing in the deck. I think there might be a better card. I just have not found it yet. Land Tax. If you've never played Land Tax, you should play Land Tax at least once. And just Land Tax every turn you can tax, and if you get too many lands, just throw them in the graveyard. This guy, I mentioned before, he can make a turn 3 and turn 4, get you into your general on turn 5, pretty much by himself if you have the 3 mana. So, you know, it's pretty good. And the Gilded Lotus, it's not a perfect fit for the deck, but it's not bad mana fixing wise. For the land mixture, what I'll do is in the description down below, I'll include a link to the tappedout.net version of this deck. And I'll include links to a couple of previous versions of this deck so you can compare and see how this deck has changed. There are a couple of tweaks I'm kind of thinking about making, but I haven't quite finalized what I want to do yet. This is the current version I'm playing, and I've been playing this for a little while. I've been playing this version since the Dragon itself came out. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. If you have any suggestions, or if you have any dragons that I missed that I should have included, let me know in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and I hope y'all have an excellent day.